"Read," said the old man. Franz untied it, and in the midst of the most profound silence read. Extract from the report of a meeting of the Bonapartist Club in the Rue Saint-Jacques, held February 5, 1815. Franz stopped. February 5, 1815. Said he, "It is the day my father was murdered." Valentine and Villefort were dumb. The eye of the old man alone seemed to say clearly, "Go on." "But it was on leaving this club," said he, "my father disappeared." Noirtiers, I continued to say, "Read." He resumed. The undersigned Louis-Jacques Beaupère, Lieutenant Colonel of Artillery, Etienne de Champy, General of Brigade, and Claude Le Charpal, Keeper of Woods and Forests, declare, that on the 4th of February, a letter arrived from the island of Elba, recommending to the kindness and the confidence of the Bonapartist Club, General Flavien de Canel, who having served the Emperor from 1804 to 1814 was supposed to be devoted to the interests of the Napoleon dynasty, notwithstanding the title of Baron which Louis XVIII had just granted to him with his estate of Epinay. A note was in consequence addressed to General de Canel, begging him to be present at the meeting next day, the 5th. The note indicated neither the street nor the number of the house where the meeting was to be held, it bore no signature, but it announced to the general that someone would call for him if he would be ready at 9 o'clock. The meetings were always held from that time till midnight. At 9 o'clock the president of the club presented himself. The general was ready. The president informed him that one of the conditions of his introduction was that he should be eternally ignorant of the place of meeting, and that he would allow his eyes to be bandaged, swearing that he would not endeavor to take off the bandage. General de Canel accepted the condition, and promised on his honor not to seek to discover the road they took. The general's carriage was ready, but the president told him it was impossible for him to use it, since it was useless to blindfold the master if the coachman knew through what streets he went. "What must be done then?" asked the general. "I have my carriage here," said the president. "Have you, then, so much confidence in your servant that you can entrust him with a secret you will not allow me to know?" "Our coachman is a member of the club," said the president, We shall be driven by a state councillor. Then we run another risk, said the general, laughing, that of being upset. We insert this joke to prove that the general was not in the least compelled to attend the meeting, but that he came willingly. When they were seated in the carriage, the president reminded the general of his promise to allow his eyes to be bandaged, to which he made no opposition. On the road, the president thought he saw the general make an attempt to remove the handkerchief, and reminded him of his oath. Sure enough, said the general. The carriage stopped at an alley leading out of the Rue Saint-Jacques. The general alighted, leaning on the arm of the president, of whose dignity he was not aware, considering him simply as a member of the club. They went through the alley, mounted a flight of stairs, and entered the assembly room. The deliberations had already begun. The members, apprised of the sort of presentation which was to be made that evening, were all in attendance. When in the middle of the room the general was invited to remove his bandage, he did so immediately, and was surprised to see so many well-known faces in a society of whose existence he had till then been ignorant. They questioned him as to his sentiments, but he contented himself with answering, that the letters from the island of Elba ought to have informed them. Franz interrupted himself by saying, "My father was a royalist, they need not have asked his sentiments, which were well known." "And hence," said Villefort, "arose my affection for your father, my dear M. Franz. Opinions held in common are a ready bond of union." "Read again," said the old man. Franz continued. The president then sought to make him speak more explicitly, but M. de Quesnel replied that he wished first to know what they wanted with him. He was then informed of the contents of the letter from the island of Elba, in which he was recommended to the club as a man who would be likely to advance the interests of their party. One paragraph spoke of the return of Bonaparte and promised another letter and further details, on the arrival of the Pharaon belonging to the shipbuilder Morel, of Marseille, whose captain was entirely devoted to the emperor. During all this time, the general, on whom they thought to have relied as on a brother, manifested evidently signs of discontent and repugnance. When the reading was finished, He remained silent, with knitted brows. "Well," asked the President, "what do you say to this letter, General?" "I say that it is too soon after declaring myself for Louis XVIII. To break my vow in behalf of the ex-emperor." This answer was too clear to permit of any mistake as to his sentiments. "General," said the President, "we acknowledge no King Louis XVIII, or an ex-emperor, but His Majesty the Emperor and King, driven from France, which is his kingdom, by violence and treason." "Excuse me, gentlemen," said the General, "you may not acknowledge Louis XVIII, but I do, as he has made me a Baron and a Field Marshal, and I shall never forget that for these two titles I am indebted to his happy return to France." "Sir," said the President, rising with gravity, "be careful what you say. Your words clearly show us that they are deceived concerning you in the island of Elba, and have deceived us." "The communication has been made to you in consequence of the confidence placed in you, and which does you honor." "Now we discover our error. A title and promotion attach you to the government we wish to overturn. We will not constrain you to help us. We enroll no one against his conscience, but we will compel you to act generously, even if you are not disposed to do so." "You would call acting generously, knowing your conspiracy and not informing against you, that is what I should call becoming your accomplice." "You see I am more candid than you." "Ah, my father," said Franz, interrupting himself. "I understand now why they murdered him." Valentine could not help casting one glance towards the young man, whose filial enthusiasm it was delightful to behold. Villefort walked to and fro behind them. Noirtier watched the expression of each one, and preserved his dignified and commanding attitude. Franz returned to the manuscript, and continued. "Sir," said the President, "you have been invited to join this assembly, you were not forced here, it was proposed to you to come blindfolded, you accepted." "When you complied with this twofold request you well knew we did not wish to secure the throne of Louis XVIII, or we should not take so much care to avoid the vigilance of the police." "It would be conceding too much to allow you to put on a mask to aid you in the discovery of our secret, and then to remove it that you may ruin those who have confided in you." No, no, you must first say if you declare yourself for the king of a day who now reigns, or for his majesty the emperor.